There are many ways to suppress the votes of African Americans and other minorities. Often, these techniques are not even apparent. This video focuses on the impact of the congressional district and gerrymandering. Most American elections use what is called a single-member district, winner-take-all system. This means that individual states are divided up into districts, and each district elects only one person. The person who gets the most votes wins. Everyone else loses, no matter how many votes they got. For example, the state of California is entitled to 52 seats in the House of Representatives. Therefore, the state of California is divided into exactly 52 districts, and each district elects one member of the House. Single-member districts are a fundamental feature of our electoral system, and yet they can be highly biased against racial minorities. North Carolina is an excellent example. Approximately 20% of the population of North Carolina is African American. And yet for 120 years, from 1870 to 1990, not a single African American was elected to Congress or statewide office. Despite constituting 1 out of every 5 North Carolina residents, they were shut out of elective office for more than a century. Although there were many reasons for this, one of them was the use of single-member districts. Because there was only one winner in each district, the winning candidate had to get more than 50% of the vote. But white voters would rarely vote for black candidates, and white voters comprised a majority in every single congressional district, as well as the state as a whole. So white voters were able to outvote black voters for more than a century. But the problem goes even deeper. Every 10 years, states are required to redraw their district lines to reflect changes in population. This process is highly political, and has often been used by white politicians to reduce the power of the minority vote. This is called racial gerrymandering. Let us consider the fictional town of Hilldale. Each dot represents 1,000 people, so there are 50,000 people living in this town. Each blue dot represents a white neighborhood, and each red dot represents a black neighborhood. The town needs to be divided into 5 congressional districts. If this were being done in a racially neutral manner, then you would draw the district lines in this way, and you would end up with 2 black majority districts and 3 white majority districts. But let's assume that the state legislature is controlled by white politicians who want to minimize minority representation. There are 2 main strategies that they can use to do this. They're called packing and cracking. Let's consider cracking first. Cracking involves drawing the district lines to split groups apart from each other, diluting their voting power by spreading them out across multiple districts, and robbing them of a majority that they would otherwise have had. The congressional districts in Hilldale could be drawn like this, splitting African American voters across districts, ensuring that they don't have a majority in any of them. While Hilldale is a fictional town, there are plenty of real-life examples. Between 2010 and 2022, the Latino population of Dallas, Texas grew dramatically, enough so that they merited their own congressional district. But Latinos tend to vote for Democrats, and the Texas legislature is dominated by Republicans. As a result, after the 2020 census, the Texas legislature engaged in cracking. It drew a congressional map that dispersed Latinos into 3 separate districts, each with overwhelming white majorities. As a result, even though their population grew, Latinos actually lost voting power following this redistricting. They did the same thing in Austin and Houston, handing more power to white, suburban voters across the state. The other main technique for minimizing minority voting power is called packing. Packing is the opposite of cracking, although the goals are the same. In packing, minority voters are compressed into a small number of districts in which they have an overwhelming majority, leaving a larger number of districts in which they do not. For example, in Hillsdale, the legislature could draw the district lines like this. In this case, the colors are reversed, so that each blue dot represents a black neighborhood, and each red dot represents a white neighborhood. You can see that whites now make up a majority in 3 districts rather than 2 districts, as in the neutral map. For virtually all of American history, racial gerrymandering has been used to hurt minorities. But after the 1990 census, Some states started to use racial gerrymandering to boost minority voting power by creating what are called majority-minority districts. You'll recall that North Carolina didn't elect a single black member of Congress for 120 years. That was partially because African Americans didn't make up a majority in any single congressional district, ensuring that they were constantly outvoted. To address this problem, the state legislature created the 12th district. This district was 160 miles long, and it was drawn to include several African American neighborhoods in 3 different counties. It was known as the I-85 district because part of it consisted of only a single lane of Interstate 85. The district worked exactly as planned. North Carolina elected its first African American member of Congress in 120 years. But 5 white voters objected and filed a lawsuit claiming that it violated the Equal Protection Clause. In a 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court agreed. The majority said that drawing districts along racial lines is similar to racial apartheid. It said, racial gerrymandering, even for remedial purposes, may balkanize us into competing racial factions. It threatens to carry us further from the goal of a political system in which race no longer matters, a goal that the 14th and 15th Amendments embody, and to which the nation continues to aspire. The problem, of course, is that this decision took away one of the most effective tools for improving minority representation. And as the Texas example demonstrates, racial gerrymandering has not stopped. The Supreme Court only seems to disapprove when it is designed to help minorities rather than hurt them.